Hello and welcome to today it is the Three Guys One Spread podcast. Our first ever time incorporating in an extra body here as we do. We're going to get into an MLB fantasy focused preview show. I'm Joe. I got Tommy and I
What's
got my
up?
buddy Mike here. Mike, what's up?
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Um, So if we're gonna focus on fantasy, I think the first talk we were gonna have is about the different types of leagues and stuff. Um, Mike, why don't you fire away with your typical league?
Sure. Um, I have so I've been playing fantasy baseball for 20 years roughly. I've played all sorts of formats. The only format I haven't really tried is the points format. Um, but I have come to kind of settle in the past 10 years or so on rotisserie, auction league specifically, and my home league has 12 players. So I've played in some NFBC leagues. I've played in head-to-head format for years, but that's kind of what I've dialed into recently.
What just tell everybody your favorite team. Let's get it out of the way.
Let's go Mets.
Let's go
Oh,
Mets.
oh,
All right. I knew this guy was all right.
Absolutely.
Tommy, what leagues you got?
So I started mostly playing head to head for the first I don't know 7-8 years playing, and then all of a sudden now I'm in rotisserie. Um, there's pros and cons of both. I feel um, with rotisserie you have you can have a real tendency of guys who are way out of it early. Say July comes and they're in like last place in every position in rotisserie, and they just want to call it because there's no coming back. Uh, I have had this argument in fantasy football where leagues want to go straight points instead of head to head. But I do like the rotisserie league a little bit better. Head to head is fun. It is fun playing somebody. I feel instead of just setting your roster and watching those. It is. I just like playing somebody. But I've been sticking with the rotisserie league for the last about 5 years, so that's what I've gotten used to.
Yeah, I've played them both. I'm not. I can't even remember if my rotisseries were auction. I don't think they were. That's got to definitely put a. I mean that in itself is a whole different spin, right? Auction versus regular draft, and a lot.
Oh yeah.
I definitely think you probably have a lot more strategy, and you really got to be on top of it if you're doing the auction. I'm not a big roto guy. I I've always felt what Tommy said. I feel it's so hard to climb that ladder. I mean, listen,
It
it's
is.
reflective of baseball a little bit, right? Super
Yeah.
long season, tons of games. Like you have to stick with it and grind through it. Um, I enjoy playing people. I think the points make it a little more fun for me personally. I I like doing side bets with my buddies and stuff a lot. So um, I think all fantasy talk definitely is going to have a little bit of spin based on stuff like that. But um, I think all of them have their pros and cons, and I definitely think when you're a roto champ, you've put together a complete team that's probably strong in all areas, as opposed to I just can hit bombs, or depending on the type of league you got. So
Right.
what
One thing I liked in Roto is when you play head to head, you got those guys. You're trying to pick up the 2-star pitchers every week, and then you're
yeah,
doing this. Roto
cheapens it.
is more of a you could it's like Ron Popeil. You set it and forget it at times.
Yeah.
You can set your roster. You don't have to go in and get that guy, pick him up because he's playing 2 starts that week. I do feel it's a little easier. The only negative I have with it is it happens every year. You get 3 to 4 guys or 3 guys are just terrible in July, mid July, and they are done. They are not setting a roster anymore.
Yeah.
They're not picking up players anymore. So
Yeah, we've struggled with that a little bit. We've tried all sorts of creative ways to like keep engagement throughout the year. So
Yeah.
we've paid out for winning a category. So all the different categories got cash prize. We've paid out total offense, total pitching. we're toying around with the idea this year of actually penalizing the last three places
Right.
so like they have to pay a little extra. So
I like it.
what we would do. So the idea is you incent the teams to play their way out of the last three places,
Yeah.
and then we would use that money to pay like a fourth place or an additional place at the top.
Do you guys draft online?
We do, yes. I've said I will never do a baseball draft live.
No.
It's just too daunting. We do our football auction live sometimes, and it's amazing. I just can't imagine doing a full baseball draft live auction
Yeah.
draft. Oh my
You
god.
probably have to block out like 4 days.
Yeah, actually, I mean, someday maybe I'll do it, but I used to be the commissioner of our league, and I was like, we're not doing a live draft, guys.
Listen,
Online.
It's
I
so
want to
many
hear
more
an up.
players and
Yeah.
yeah.
Baseball's so hard though because you have, I mean, literally, like I feel like in football opening day, like everybody knows the starters. Like baseball, like as much as you think you know the starters, there's platoons all over the place. You know, catchers rotate in. You got the D. Like I feel like with baseball, it's and if you got a team with 4 or 5 outfielders, like it's not the same outfield every day. You know what I mean? So
Right.
Right.
with baseball, it really is. I mean, there's layers upon layers to it. So I do want to hear a update, just Mikey, and see if you guys wound up doing that, penalizing the last three. I like that. That kind of puts people to be like, yep, I still got to grind out of, second to last here. So
Yeah. Hey, bring me back on later in the year, and we can give an update maybe.
Yeah, we should give an update on all our teams and how we do. I mean, that's an interesting strategy. We got to try something because that is a big problem with these rotisserie.
Yeah.
At least head to head, maybe you can get the
We
guy.
got a long-standing league that,
not
luckily, we got a lot of engagement. So
yeah, that's really important, right? You get a bunch of guys that have been doing it for a long time, and there's, usually enough, pride and stuff in it that you're like, you recognize what you're doing if you're not even trying to compete,
yeah,
I got a
Especially
question for you, Joe.
what?
I got a question for you. So this happened in last year's league with me, and I want to know your opinions on this. So I was in third place going into the last day, and I had a chance to jump. It didn't happen. I didn't feel like it happened, but in ESPN, if you do not have a set amount of starts as a pitcher, you automatically get dropped to, say, a set. Like if say you only didn't have I think you have to have 100 starts or something like that.
For the season.
So the guy didn't have it, and he got dropped then automatically down to like 4 points in rotisserie. So then I jumped him because I was terrible in points, and I moved into first place.
But it was
'Cause it was like,
it was in the rules though.
yeah, yes. Well, I don't know if anybody. This was an ESPN rule that no one really
Yeah.
looked into.
So
That
maybe
if you only have 100 starts, if you don't have 100 starts as a starting pitcher, then you automatically get dropped down to like the bottom four.
yeah.
So this happened. I went from like getting 3 points for earned runs
Yeah.
or wins to now I jumped up to like 7 points, and those 7 points I was only 2 points out of first, 3 points out of first, and I jumped through, and it was ugly.
I'm
Ugly.
sure it was, but I will say this. I've said this for all of my fantasy sports that I do. It is on me I could text people, ask people. It's on me to read the rules.
Right,
Like if you're putting money in to something
right.
and you are not willing to put in some time to read the rules, then I think you're probably a foolish gambler, or you're just, maybe you're in it for fun and you shouldn't be that mad. Even if the whole league didn't know about it, I mean, it's unfortunate and it's there though, right?
Right.
Because it's not.
Well,
You're right. I mean, in all sorts of different sports for fantasy, there's like the minimum amount, right?
Right.
Like hockey, I start one goalie and get a shutout. Oh, I'm done for the week.
Yes,
Depending on
that's
how
what
it
this
is, right? Like if you're
Respect,
doing
yep.
categories, you guarantee yourself at least one or two categories probably out of the five, and it's like you're not doing anything. So I mean, I would have sucked if it was me. I probably wouldn't have been happy, but
No, no, it wasn't. The guy wasn't happy. I was like, I won. The board never lies, Joe. We've played that our whole life.
right.
The board doesn't lie. But I'm a decent human being, and we ended up. I was a lot. I go. I'll split first and second money with you. But that's as far as
Oh,
I'll go. I'm not. So we worked
yeah.
it out. But it was a big fight for a month. I think it was a month after the season of negotiating a fair deal on this.
Wow.
So
I
that's why you
listen.
guys got to read the rules.
You,
Yeah.
you have to. You absolutely have to read the rules. That's just. It's just. Again, I think It's poor decision making if you're willing to put money in and not really kind of read the rules.
Right.
So,
The
and you know what?
board doesn't lie.
Nope, it doesn't. And stuff in sports. I mean, it's funny when you do fantasy. Like it's almost like betting. There's bad beats and stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff like that happens. I mean, whoever would have thought in the that Bills game when Hamlin got hurt, right? Like that was
Right. That
that
screwed
was
up a lot of fantasy leagues.
like
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of a football game not being played, I don't think I've ever even experienced, right?
Right.
I
Like,
was in my fantasy championship that game.
Right.
that's
Oh yeah.
what I
A lot
mean.
of people.
Like again, baseball, it has happened before where there's rain delays and then it's like the game doesn't happen till later. And
Well, the only reason that game played was because it mattered. If it didn't matter for playoffs, they wouldn't even play the game. It was a weird setup as it was.
yeah, the whole
It's a
thing,
little sidebar.
the whole thing was weird. But yeah, we
Yeah,
could go on.
basically read the rules of your league, so
Yeah.
when it comes down to the final, you're not pissed off and mad at somebody who didn't do anything wrong and just jumped you.
Couldn't agree more, man. Got to
Right.
know the rules.
You gotta look at them. You gotta read them and look at them. Or I mean, it's hard. I love people when they're drafting and they don't know the rules, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, like I don't know, like it makes a difference somehow. So, cool. Lots of different stuff. I mean, when I first met Mikey, I was just getting into kind of fantasy baseball and stuff like that. And I remember I would just ask him stuff, and he was like, "Oh, I'm doing this," and I'm like, "Man, it's just crazy how deep it is and how long it is, and pitching matchups and lefties versus righties and like all of it. It's awesome." So
That's why I love it. There's so much out there to dive into, like, and now they got the StatCast with the advanced metrics and stuff. I usually rely on other people to kind of tell me that stuff through podcasts and whatnot, but the amount of data that's out there that you can look at and like just kind of break down and listen to. That's why I love it, man. I love the grind.
It's insane. I mean, there are some big time nerds out there that
Yeah.
I mean, they're
Fantasy baseball
calculating.
is made for nerds.
Heck
What?
yeah.
I mean, they
Great.
basically. I mean, there's BAP stats and like every different stat you could think of. Versus lefties in day games, and you're like, holy smokes! But I don't know. I guess that's what maybe separates the first place guy from the fourth place guy. Who knows? Or sometimes it's just luck. So.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So let's get into some players. Let's get into some player stuff. You guys want to start with some value picks? You guys got some value players you like?
Sure do.
Go ahead, Mike. Start us off.
Oh, all right. Well, I had us all prepped to start off with George Kirby, but I'm gonna pull that one back because he just shoulder injury,
Oh boy.
and one of my rules is don't draft injured guys. It's a long season. If you don't have your full bill of health after a 4-month off season, 4 or 5 month off season, you're not going to get any healthier with games going on.
Yeah.
So if you take the risk, it could be a huge reward, and we'll talk about some other guys later on. But that's generally one of my kind of cardinal rules. So I switched off a little bit, and I went actually with third baseman Matt Chapman as a value pick. Veteran player, he had a great year in San Francisco, his first year. Going off the board right now, like in the 130s for ADP. I got him significantly higher than that. he's hitting cleanup in a decent lineup. And some of those, we're talking about some of those kind of more advanced metrics earlier, like hard hit rate, barrel rate, that kind of stuff. He's right up there at the top of the league, 89th to 86th percentile. Same thing with like his exit velocity and his max exit velocity off the bat. Things that are, predictive of power outcomes, RBI hitting in the middle of the lineup. Third base is pretty slim. I think that's another theme this year with the player pool. A lot of the positions are really, really top heavy. So Chapman could be a value where he's at. Stole 15 bags last year. I don't know that I would count on that, but if he's stealing 15 bases, it means he can do it. So I would count on probably a handful of steals from him, and I think you could do a lot worse at third base.
Yes, I mean steals were something that definitely creeped back into the game a little bit more last year, right? I mean, between the limited times you can throw over, right, and then they made the bags bigger, correct?
Yep.
The stolen base for a while kind of was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and I saw a bunch of guys that jumped up. So,
yep,
yeah, I like it. I will throw out. So I am going to go with Profar in Atlanta. He's Jurickson Profar, right? He's going to be lead off there, as we talked about last week. Like Atlanta has a really nice lineup.
They are loaded.
That division's loaded. I like leadoff guys. I mean, Profar to me is the kind of guy that I think in Atlanta he can really, really put up some numbers. Right? He's had some really nice seasons. He's had some down seasons. He provides a little bit of pop for you. But I just think if you can, if you're batting leadoff for the most part, I mean, you have some crazy Kyle Schwarber type stuff, but for the most part, you want a guy that can put the ball in play. It's going to draw some walks. You know what I mean? And I just think if you're in Atlanta and you're getting on base, that you're going to be scoring runs. And there's enough offense there that I think, you could withstand even an injury and, go from there. I know, Acuna will be back, and he's obviously a stud, but I just think that lineup is deep enough that he can definitely provide you with enough categories, even if you're, whether you're points or roto, in a lineup like that I think he can add some value for you.
I think so. I love Profar. I loved him in San Diego. I love the Padres. They got to be my second favorite team. He is coming off a career year, and he did get hurt actually in spring training. He's got a wrist.
He's supposed to be back, I think, though. I think they expect him for spring opening day.
Yeah, I would just say make sure the price is right, because he is coming off that career year, and he's got a long track record of relative mediocrity, I guess, before that. But I do love the guy, and I think he was the top prospect in baseball for a while, so it's worth taking a shot if the price is right.
Yeah. Tommy, you got someone?
Yeah, I got someone you might like, Joe.
Oh,
I'm gonna go with Dylan Cruz.
All right.
Nice young outfielder from Washington. Listen, what I like about him is that he plays for Washington. He is going to get more at bats this year. He was around 400 last year. He should get up to about 600 this year. I feel like he's just going to have that much more opportunity out there. He had 13 home runs last year. We maybe expect that to double. Stolen bases, 25. Hopefully a couple more there.
I think some of those may be split between the minors and the majors, but
possibly it says major league bats, but maybe.
I think he had three homers last year.
What do you got? 3 in the majors?
In the majors, but he only played. So it's funny. I have him on my sleeper list. I like him. I figured this was going to happen, right? As we go through, guys. But I agree in that. I mean, he played 31 games. The one thing that kind of wasn't great for him was his batting average, but
Right. Right.
historically,
Right.
but in 31 games, right? Like that's a bad stretch, right? Like he could be nervous his first month up there. So
Right. As we were talking before we even got on the call, it's a long, we were just talking about giving up on guys through
yeah,
July and then them just getting hot. And
yeah.
41 games is really nothing when it comes to Major League Baseball. He had his contact rate for rookie was pretty good at 78%. I just think opportunity is going to come his way, and I kind of like him.
I think so as we go through, like I said, he was on my sleeper list. I think Washington. Now they're my favorite team. I think there's a couple opportunities for some really good fantasy value and stuff there. And part of it is, like you said, these guys are going to get the at bats. I don't in that division. I'm pretty sure no one's expecting them to contend. So I think it's one of those things where you're like, you know what? If you're I don't want to say you're not trying to win every game, but you want this guy getting at bats and experience.
Right.
You know what I mean? He struggles versus lefties. Let's get him some time versus lefties. You know, like just in general, I'm saying for these guys. So, whereas if you're really in the hunt and you need to win every game, you got a guy struggling versus lefties. He's probably not going out versus lefties.
Yeah. It depends a lot on the organization too. I think you got certain teams like the Rays. They got very few guys who, if they have a skill set like that, they struggle versus lefties. You're probably going to sit versus lefties,
Yeah,
But then you got other organizations or managers. I'm trying to
yeah,
think of somebody that would just put guys in there every day and just let them grind it out, let them prove it. Like maybe Ron Washington's like that. Some of
yeah,
those kind of older, more
yeah.
traditional managers.
Yeah, you're gonna learn and grow by having an 0 for 4 and striking out 3 times, right? You know what I mean? Like I think experience in the big leagues matters. I mean, we talked a lot about this. I talked on the last show, and me and Mike were chatting before Tommy even came on about guys that like this guy's supposed to be the next up and coming guy, and then they get there, and it's like it takes sometimes 1, 2, 3 seasons before they really start to reach that potential. And there's so many rungs into it for baseball. So, and that's the thing. I could see barring Cruz doing something stupid, I could see him getting a whole bunch of at bats there, and it's a growth year. But with at bats comes opportunities to get on base and to swipe. I mean, he had 9. Something's floating around here. He had 9 extra base hits, 12 steals, 3 bombs, and the batting average wasn't there. So I like it, Tommy. Stoller. I had him as a sleeper. You have him as a value. I think he could definitely be either one of those. Mikey, you got someone else?
I do. Let's go with a top round or a top talent guy. I like Corey Seager as a value this year.
All right.
I think he's going around ADP mid 40s. So he's 12-team league. That's 4th round. I think if things click for him, and he's shown us that they can, he could return 1st round value easy. He's had 30 bombs 3 straight years. He doesn't really have a ton of speed, or any speed for that matter, but you got to get average early. That's another one of my strategies is getting that batting average early. It's just so hard to make that up later in the draft. Especially, you got your guys like Luis Ariz. If you draft, that's all you're getting is average. If you draft him, it's like it's one category guy. If you wait, so got to lock that up early. Texas has a pretty good lineup. He's a 290 career hitter. He's hit over 300 several times. Like I said, 30 homers 3 straight years. Just a year removed from really kind of MVP caliber season. I think he's a great value pick. If you look at the list of shortstops, which I think is probably the deepest position this year, especially on the infield, you got guys like O'Neal Cruz going before him. People are dreaming on the upside of Cruz. I would not take him before Seager ever. I think Seager's the guy there all day,
I
and
think one
he's
of
going to give
those.
you good value.
Yeah, one of them is. I mean, Cruz is the dream, right? Like what could he be? But Seager, you just said 30 bombs, 3 straight years. Like, warm, warm weather down there in Texas. I mean, it never hurts to play the A's or the Angels like that.
Yep.
I mean, I might start a game for the Angels this year. Who knows? So yeah, I like that. I like that. I am gonna go, and you know what, Mikey, you might have this because I don't know his ADP. I should have wrote it down, and this is a little favorite, and it's a big name, but I like what's Scherzer's ADP.
Let me get it here for you.
So here's my thinking with Scherzer. He's had, he's been banged up, and he has not been the same guy for a little bit. If there's one guy that is a bulldog and a grinder and is just going to tough it out even when he doesn't have his best stuff or he just wants to win and prove it, I'm going to take Scherzer. I loved watching him in Washington. I mean, the guy grunts on the mound. He gives you every single thing that he has. It's a tough division. It's a tough division, but a lot of these older guys, I think once they lose a little bit, it's tougher for him. But if there's a guy that, and he has had a good spring training, right? I really think that there might be one more year or 2 more years in Scherzer where he is really a really good baseball pitcher.
Yeah, he's 244 ADP right now in the past couple weeks. So, I mean, it's easy to get him if you want. Tom knows this probably. We watched him on the Mets for a couple years. He's an absolute psycho, as focused as you could possibly be.
Oh, that's great.
So, if he's a guy you like, I think it's worth a dart throw at the end of your draft. He could have one more year left in him where he returns great value from that far down.
Yeah, I mean, when he was in Washington, like you could tell, like he would almost be. I mean, he would get pissed when they pull him out of the game, right? Like he'd be begging one more. I mean, this guy, he just loves baseball, and he's a grinder, and he's got elite stuff. I mean, it's obviously he's getting older, and it's been, I think from the Mets down to the Rangers, like it's been a rocky ride. But he's a guy that I'm throwing a dart on, and I'm just hoping if he can pitch a majority of the season, I think he's going to get his K still. It's a tough division, but Mad Max, the 2 different eyes, the split eyes. I mean, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's a competitor, man. He's a maniac. I love him too.
Tommy, you got one more you want?
Yeah, I got one more.
All right.
Veteran guy. You want veteran? I'm gonna go veteran. The guy just is consistent. Matt Chapman. The guy, the last 4 years, has hit 27 home runs out of 3 out of the last 4. He's going to give you the 70 to 80 RBI. His average is all right, but it's going to be you can figure out what it's going to be before the season starts.
Was that Mikey? Was that your first one?
That was my guy. That was my first guy.
Yeah.
Paying attention?
No, sleep it. It's 2 guys, 1 sleep.
I'm glad we're on the same wavelength, though.
Now I'll be honest. I mean, I feel like I got to try and steal this guy in some of my drafts.
Wow. I mean, this is a sleeper in the podcast. He's a sleeper here. An unbelievable sleeper. How did I miss Chapman when you're talking about him?
Yeah.
I led off with him, so I totally agree.
This guy Mike's a genius. I'm glad you brought him on. We're on the same wavelength. It's unbelievable. Everything that Mike said is exactly right.
Except for the fact that he likes the Mets.
I mean, we're on the same link.
I can't wait to start texting you when the Mets stink.
The Mets might stink. That's a different story for a different day. But they might stink.
There's a non-zero chance that they stink, but no,
Really?
What? I mean, I'm a Mets fan, and I don't know if that's true.
Non-zero. Well,
anybody could
what are we
anybody could stink.
what yeah.
Their
What are we
pitching
I
is
going
don't
not
think they're
great.
gonna. I don't think they're gonna. I think they're good, but you never know, man. Especially with the long season, teams have like fallen apart down the stretch. But I
and
don't think I don't think they will. I think they're good.
you think all right, this at the end of the season, how many games back or are they winning the division?
I think they'll be in the hunt. I don't know about the pitching, man. The
Pitching's
rotation
that's the
is.
scary part of the team.
I think Stern. So we're bird walking here, but I think Stearns has a 2 to 3 year plan. Lock up the core offensively, get by. So last year they didn't expect the rotation to do anything last year. Obviously that worked out. Um, but I think there's good free agent class of pitchers coming up. They got some young talent, so I think he's locking up the offensive core and developing the pitching, and he'll make a splash in free agency over the next 2 to 3 years and really make a run. But I think up until then, we will be competitive.
Well,
They will be competitive.
they'll spend money. We know that.
Finally.
That's that's one. All right, let's go to you guys. You want to go to some busts? You guys have a bust?
Let me sneak in one more value here. I got
Yeah,
one more value.
I'm just
be
going to
quick.
go whatever Mike says is a bust, and I'll talk to you.
I got a second year guy who I think's gonna rebound a little bit and take the leap. Jared Jones, Pirates pitcher.
Yeah.
He's kind of living in Skeens' shadow a little bit, and for fantasy purposes, I think that works out because he'll probably potentially slip a little bit in drafts. He's a bulldog, power pitcher, fastball, slider guy. Can definitely count on him for strikeouts. I think if you're looking for upside and you're kind of like in the middle of your rotation, you can definitely look at Jones to take a shot. Should get probably about 150 innings this year, up from 130 something. He did deal with injuries last year, but I think he's healthy. So if that happens, you're looking at probably 170-ish Ks. Not going to kill you in any of the other categories, so I think he is got a ton of upside on top of that and definitely worth a shot.
Oh man, before he got hurt last year, he was good. I
Yeah.
mean, I was in one of my leagues. I was riding him. I was like, this guy's. I mean, again, you kind of hide in Pittsburgh, and a lot of that success was before Skeens got there, right? But yeah, for sure. I mean, I love it. He was really good before he got dinged up, and I think being in Pittsburgh and in that shadow, I could definitely see him, slipping. Usually, you're like, how many Pirates do I want, right? Like everyone's gonna go after Skeens, but if he stays healthy, which is probably every pitcher, right? There's a lot of them like that, but
Yeah.
he's young and he was really good. I remember when he got hurt and left, my lineup was not the same.
Yeah, that is one potential red flag is the velocity. I saw a graphic, I forget who it was on Twitter or something, but last year's or 2023's like top 20 average fastball velocity pitchers, and like they all got hurt the next year.
Yeah.
So Jones is on that list from last year, but he dealt with an injury already, so it's a little bit of a red flag and a risk, but he's super fun to watch. Love the fastball slider combo, and I think he's a value.
And
Joe,
in,
oh, go ahead, Joe.
in baseball with pitching, it is such a. I mean, it's so much about health. At one point, I saw a stat last year, and it was like the top 7 paid pitchers. This was like July. The top 7 paid pitchers had like 6 wins. it was absolutely remarkable. I mean, but yeah, these guys throw so hard now. Like every one of them, that it's a risk no matter what.
I already put this bet in, so I like the Pirates under season total wins. All you're saying is great. Jones he faltered towards the end of the year a little bit, but obviously he was great but their offense is terrible, and 77 wins seems too much for me. So I just want to mention
Oh, I was
a
going to
little
ask
bet in
what
there
it
that I
was.
already made. I like the under. I think it's 77 and a half. I like the under.
That's always. I'll say
They're
this
a
from a
bad team.
competitive standpoint. That's always a tough division,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, no matter what happens, the Cardinals never seem to be terrible. Brewers have been good. Cincy is decent. I mean, they've been kind of up and coming here a little bit. And who else? Oh, the Cubs, right? And the Cubs. I mean, the Cubs aren't the White Sox, so that is a tough division. 77, interesting.
What do you think? What do you think there, Mike? I mean,
Well,
you get past Skeens, you get past Jones. What do
you
you
got to
love
score
about
runs.
these?
I mean, they got. I think Andrew McCutcheon is hitting cleanup for him.
Yes, he is.
You got to score. You got to score to win.
That's
So,
right.
Unless he's pitching.
And Skeens is going to give you. I mean, he's going to pitch. He's going to be great. I'm not arguing that he's not going to
Yeah,
be great,
yeah.
but even he's not going to win every game he pitches. So,
Well, I'll tell you this: if for some reason, here's the other thing that I kind of like about unders. If for some reason Skeens gets hurt at all, I mean, now you're probably a guaranteed cash, right?
right.
right.
I don't
You know
want
what I mean? Like in baseball, that stuff, like that's almost like a guarantee then.
You don't want to put that in the universe, Joe. We don't want Skeens hurt now. Come on.
No, I'm just, but it's baseball pitchers. It's just the reality of it.
yeah.
It's true. That's true.
I mean, literally. I mean, look at Garrett Cole's out. I mean, that just came from no place, right?
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of pitchers, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna move to a bust, and I just got to think I got to put Chris Sale there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he's going to be a total turd, but there's no way that this guy. I mean, he had so many seasons. I mean, he was elite for his time, and then he had so many seasons where you're like, this guy, he can't even dream of staying healthy. Put it together. He's always been a guy that's kind of, I say this all the time. There's guys that are, when you're young and you're juiced and you just yoke the ball and you got speed, you could be elite. But once that wears off a little bit, you better learn how to pitch, right? CC Sabathia learned how to pitch and extended his career. And then there's other guys that don't. And I'm not saying that Sal hasn't, but I don't know. I just can't. I don't know where his ADP is, but he's coming off a Cy Young that I don't think anybody, and I don't even think the Braves, if you ask them before the season, were like, this guy's going to win the Cy Young. You're like, yeah, he's not. 7 years ago, maybe. He hasn't been that way. I can't do it. I can't do it. There's no chance that I'm going to have him in any of my leagues, only because I know someone's going to take him before me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think when you talk about bust, it's all about like it's same with values, but it's all like in relation to where they're going, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
he's going 36 right now. So end of the third round. So he's a lot of people.
Do you have? Does it say what pitcher he is? Like a pitcher, like out of pitchers?
Yep. 15, and this is for 12-team NFBCs over the past like 2 or 3 weeks. So he's an early SP2. I agree with you. I would not take him there. I think the couple of years before last year, he was really showing some signs of decline and inconsistency.
Yeah.
And it's just a risk, especially in the third round. I mean, if you're picking in a snake draft, you gotta have a little more floor there, a little more solid floor there, in my opinion.
Yep. That's where I'm thinking.
Sale, before last year, he's been terrible for 5 years easily. It's hard to believe he's just back.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
I got a similar guy.
All right.
See if you guys can guess.
So, when you say similar, you mean like pitcher?
Similar circumstance to Sale for my bust, my first bust.
So starting pitcher that's had success?
Well, maybe it's not as similar. It's DeGrom.
DeGrom or anybody
I
like
was just
that?
going to say it.
Yeah,
I was getting ready to say it.
yeah. It's Jacob, and it pains me to say it
Right.
because I love the guy. He gave us some great years in New York, but he is going off the board at 44 right now, just after sale. I got him significantly lower. You're dreaming on the upside, which if it pays off, it's going to pay off in a big way.
Yeah.
But he's had 2 Tommy John surgeries now. He's going to be 37 years old. He hasn't finished in the top 20% of any fantasy category since 2020, the short season. And he hasn't cleared 95 innings pitched since 2019, when he was the best pitcher in baseball. So, in that range, there's like Cole Reagans, Dylan Cease, Kirby. I'm not going to draft him anymore, but I'd rather go with guys like Reagans or Cease, guys who are kind of either stabilized or on the upswing, than taking a shot on Jacob.
Yeah. Man, when he was good, he was incredible.
Yeah.
Just like unhittable. But yeah, I know. I mean, it's that kind of. I mean, that's like I got big balls type of pick, and if you hit, like you said, if you hit it, like, and he is the DeGrom that we have seen. Like you're riding him for a long time, but it's risky.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think that you're gonna get in terms of innings this year, even from him? Like if he gets 120 innings, that's like I feel like that's best case scenario. 130.
Yeah. I mean, it almost I mean, again, but this is this is kind of what I felt about Sale. It's almost inconceivable that he could go a whole season and not end up on the DL at any point. But I mean, it can happen. It just seems so risky. And like you said, when you're going in the third round, you just baseballs. You got to get guys that are are reliable that you can get out there the best you can. But you hit it, you look like a genius, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, I got a
Tom,
bust.
you got a bust you like?
Yeah. You like
Don't
these
match
numbers? You like these numbers? Batting 337, 41 home runs, 149 runs scored, 106 RBIs, 73 steals. Those sound good.
Cunha?
Yeah.
Sound pretty good. That was 2023 Cunha. 2024 Cunha was not as good. Obviously, he had the knee injury late May. Mike talked about guys with injuries. He's not going to start the season. He didn't start 2024 good. His knee was bothering him in 2024. He obviously had the knee injury.
How much is he supposed to miss? Do you know? Do we know?
I think about a month.
A month, and that's you're hoping a month. And
Yeah.
then he had no spring training. So then, I don't know if that's a month with like getting back into everything. But I'm not taking him. I'm not taking the risk on him.
He's already said too. I think I don't know. He said it, or maybe his manager said it, that he's not gonna run as much. He's gonna take it easy on the base pass. I think was the quote.
Right. I mean, I think he's had 2 knee surgeries.
Yeah, that's kind of it's kind of a shame, like you said. Baseball players, you don't like to see that for such special talents. But yeah, I mean, I think playing that position, right? Like playing that position, and I mean, running's a big part of baseball. I mean, Trout has,
Yeah.
there was a time where he was incredible, and it's just, I think once that body starts to fail a little bit, it's tough. I mean, as much as baseball's not like tough guy hockey, football, smash them. I mean, you're playing every single day. There's no breaks. It does wear out. So yeah, I could definitely see. And again, someone's going to swing on him. Someone's going to take a swing because those numbers.
Just because of the name alone, and you're outfielder 12. Yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm not a big outfielder guy as it is. I mean, we didn't talk about draft strategy, but I'm an inside out guy. Outfielders are I'm always usually passing on an outfielder. I don't get these guys late. So for me, um, yeah, I'm not taking that risk that he comes back May 1st and it's just all of a sudden the Acuna of 2023 and it's just going to be great, which I just don't see it. So I think he's going to be a bust, especially at that pick. So there you go.
Cool. Man, we might have to throw in another episode. We're 45 minutes in. I still got
Yeah.
oh,
Does anybody have any
I'm
set
down for a
strategies?
pod,
I know
too.
we're talking players here, but we're talking fantasy draft as all. Do you guys have a set strategy going into a draft that that's what you follow? Like I mentioned, I mean, I don't take, I go inside out. I'm trying to get a shortstop, second baseman, third baseman, pitcher. Uh, these are the things I want before an outfielder. There's almost no outfielder that I'm going to draft in the first, second round.
Juan Soto.
Not even Juan Soto.
I know. I am somewhat similar. I don't love the outfielders only because I just feel like
There's so many.
it's like for me it's almost like centers for hockey. Come July, I feel like I'm going to click on there and yeah, he may not play every day, but he's playing 3 out of 4. I'm going to find 20 guys that are serviceable in the outfield, whereas those infield guys, it's not the same. There's times where I'm sitting there looking, I'm like, wow, there is garbage out there. Like, whoa, this is thin. And I'm like, you're like, this guy had 3 hot games. I'm gonna pick him up, and you're like, yep, right back to the toilet.
I think it depends a lot on your league structure.
Mm-hmm.
Like for auction, it's hard. Like you can have a strategy, but then the first 3 or 4 buys could throw the whole league for a loop.
Right.
Yeah.
With
So
auctions, changes things.
it's kind of hard. I think in general for me, I like to go hitting early. I'll put most of my money towards hitting, or if I'm drafting in a snake, I would draft hitting early, focusing more on guys with like a strong floor, and then maybe grab an ace in like the 3rd or 4th round, and then kind of wait a little bit to get the rest to fill out the rest of my staff. So hitting early and floor early are kind of my strategies. And then like towards the end of the draft, I love trying to pick out guys that have, that you can dream on a little bit, like upside guys. I would rather take them than like like a veteran who's you can count on them for steady production, if not great. I would rather take a shot on more of an upside guy, more of an unknown towards the end of the draft.
Is there a position in all of sports for fantasy purposes that is more, maybe running back, more risky than starting pitcher? I mean, it just goes so fast. Last year, people like
Strider was the guy last year. Loved him.
Who?
Strider.
I picked up Strider in like all 3 of my leagues, like that first year, right? He came on, he had like 2 starts, and I'm like, this guy's ridiculous. I'm like, I'm taking a swing. And he was just a monster. And then last year, like everyone was all about him, right? And he goes there, and then like you're literally like, well, that's done. You know what I mean?
remember
Like,
he pitched a
I
game,
don't know.
and then you're like, oh, he's got elbow soreness. He's going to miss like 3 weeks, and then that was it.
That's what I mean. And you don't, I mean, like Garrett Cole, like we said, just happened, right? Like man, pitching is just so tough. It is so tricky to swing on those guys. And I mean, if they're great, they're great. But it's like a third of the top, maybe half of the top guys, are just not going to be there.
Yeah, and you can't pitch hurt. Like
No.
you can't. Like
Yeah.
there's the major injuries that take guys out for the year, but then there's the guys with like
Blister.
you got a blister
Right.
or you got shoulder soreness. You cannot pitch hurt. You're gonna get crushed.
Yeah.
Like the margin for error when you're a starting pitcher or any pitcher in big leagues is like it's so narrow that if you have a hangnail, you're gonna get destroyed.
And And the other part of it, which is it's tough. It's like we told that story, Tom. Remember when we were at the Detroit game and I tried throwing that ball, like,
Oh, yeah.
and it hurt my arm so bad. And like it's so taxing on your arm. Like you said, if it's even like bothering you, it's not getting better. Like
No.
you have to, and I hate the DL, especially for the players because it's like the 8-day DL or a 7-day DL. But like for a pitcher, if it's not feeling right, forget it. You either better sit out a month or you're just going to try one more time, and I guarantee you're looking at a long stint. That's just what happens all the time. I get so nervous when one of my good pitchers has like a rough outing because I'm like, I'm going to hear about shoulder soreness in like 2 days, and I know where that's leading. I'm like, even though we got shelled, I'm like, just be healthy. It was just a bad day, right? Like, which it happens. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you're right. You can't go out there and muscle through it, right?
Joe, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say these starting pitchers are not getting drunk 6 hours and then trying to throw the ball as fast as they can. It's just a guess. Not. I could be wrong on how. I don't know. I've never watched. I've seen pitchers warm up, but
maybe David Wells. David Wells back.
David Wells might have been the last one to do it.
The last true.
It might have been why your arm was a little sore. I mean, we drank for 6 hours.
I know, but I tried giving it everything I had, and that's what I expect out of a fantasy pitcher to give it everything you have.
Right. Well, it's they didn't let you throw the ball for like 40 times and loosen up. It's really on them.
All right. So let's before we close here, we're at 51. Let's each throw out one guy that we like, any category. Not even that you like. It could be a bust. One guy. Tell us what it's going to like, what category you think it is, and we'll give us a minute on him.
All right. I don't want to end. I don't want to end on a bust, but I do want to give. I heard you talking about this guy, Joe. So I want to do. Can I do one more bust, and then we'll go into our closing guys?
Of course.
So I think this is your guy, and I love him too. But I am not drafting Ellie.
Oh yeah, he's another guy who's on my list too.
He's going Ellie De La Cruz. Your guy.
Oh, that's my boy too.
I mean, you're paying for the dream, I think. He's a top 5. He's going off the board number 4 right now overall.
All right, so I got to say this. I have him in a keeper, right?
Okay.
So I drafted him in the 7th.
And
so
I hope my son never listens to this podcast because he's he's Ellie's biggest fan in the world. You got the jersey, he's got the posters, he's got 400 cards. He loves Ellie. And I do too. We actually took him down to Citi Field to see Mets Reds last year.
Awesome.
A story for another podcast.
Yeah.
But he's going off the board at number 4. I think you're dreaming on the ceiling. He did steal almost 70 bases last year, just an amazing year. But he's also strikes out a third of the time that he gets up to the plate. He's got one of the worst K rates in baseball. Like I said, I love him in real life. I just don't love him as a top 5 guy. I think shortstop is one of the deeper positions this year, so you can afford to wait. Guys like Corey Seager, like I said, Trey Turner, they're going 2+ rounds later. I would rather scoop up one of those guys than take a shot on Ellie kind of reliving his dream. And, I'm saying that, and I hope that he proves me wrong because I do love the guy. He's so fun to watch. I think he's great for baseball, but I'm just not in at the price.
He's something to watch. I mean, jeez, his strides. I mean, he just flies. But I agree. That's really early. Trey Turner in that lineup, if I can grab him a couple, 2 rounds later, all day. I get that. I got him in a keeper. So I'm super excited for that. I see the validity in that point for sure.
I don't like it.
Oh, go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
I don't like it. I would invite Mike back. I like Ellie.
Do it.
I mean, I get what you're saying. 4th overall pick. You would have him like a round later.
Yeah, probably. I still. So the fact that he strikes out 1/3 of the time, I just have such a hard time pulling the trigger early in the draft with guys with a K rate that's that high. And I know his speed makes up for it. to some degree. But
I mean, if you're
like I
missing
said
the
earlier,
ball,
I like the floor. I like the floor early, ceiling late, generally. So.
all right, Mikey, you had one more you wanted to throw out.
All right, one more. We're going to end on a positive note for me. It's a guy that I've really liked for several years. I like Riley Green a lot. I like him to take a step forward. Outfielder for the Tigers. Currently going off the board around ADP 100. Former top prospect, which I really I do put a little stock in that. He's still young. He was number 2 prospect, I think, 2 years ago. Entering his 4th season healthy. He's got elite contact skills, 90 percentile barrel rate, and 83rd percentile hard hit rate. Same thing for his exit velocity, right up there in the high 80s. He was a 300 hitter throughout the minors. He hasn't done that in the bigs yet, but I think there's a lot more there. So he's got a stable floor and a lot of upside, and he's exciting to watch too at the plate. He's one of those hitters that it's got a really sweet left-handed swing. And there's, you guys ever hear of Nick Pollock, Pitcher List? He's like a pitching analyst, and he says that you can tell a lot about how good a guy is at hitting based on the way that pitchers approach throwing to him.
Yeah.
And that typically pitchers, even the really good ones who typically are bulldogs and attack guys, they tend to nibble around when they're pitching to Riley Green. So I thought that was a great little nugget. I think he's a value. I think he's a little bit of a sleeper, and that's what I'll end today with.
I like it. Tommy, you got someone you want to throw out there from any categories?
I stole Chapman from Mike earlier, but I like consistent guys. This is not a guy you're not getting. It's not a value or anything. It's just you just know what you're getting, and that's Freddie Freeman. I love the guy. I feel like I know what I'm gonna get with these guys, and it's just gonna be a safe. I'm not gonna get steals or anything like, but I just know what you're getting with them, and that's the kind of guy I like.
Yeah, I mean that lineup.
He's getting older. I'm concerned about his age, a little bit, but other than that,
yeah, no, he's definitely great. I mean, he is a great hitter. He is a great baseball hitter.
and a great hitter and a great offense. So
yeah. Oh man, I am stuck. I got guys all over the place that I want to throw out and talk about. I am going to go with Grant Holmes, who's a pitcher in Atlanta. I was doing some research on some of these guys. He has 2 things that I really like. Right, he misses a bunch of bats. He can strike people out, and he limits walks. I've talked before how much I look at WHIP. I just don't think you can afford to give free bases. It is really difficult in, pitching is hard enough, let alone to, give free bases. Like, you talked about it, Mike, guys, you'll nibble around it. I like to get listen, I'm going to attack you. I'm going to attack and put you on the offensive. You got to change locations, you got to change tiers, you got to change speeds, but so they did his numbers last year. He had what they considered elite numbers in walk rate, chase rate, whiff rate. And there were, I think, 2 other pitchers who were, I forget who they were, but they were studs that were there. So he's on a good team, strikes guys out, doesn't give free walks. And I said, I can't stand watching my favorite team and you're walking guys, and I'm just like, that guy's coming around to score, right? He's going to come around to score, and you're just like, I don't want to say they didn't earn it, but they didn't earn it, right? Like, I want guys putting the bat on the ball. And when I saw his numbers in those 3 categories, they're pretty good. So, and I think that's a name that you're not gonna, he's not up there with elite when it comes to that stuff. So.
Well, he pitched great against the Mets last year, so I remember that. He's the long-haired guy. So yeah, I think he has looked good this spring. I haven't dug into him a ton, but I think he's looked good this spring, and I think he's the guy that's going to, once Strider gets back, I think he's the favorite to kind of hang on to that rotation spot. I know there's a couple guys battling for it, so yeah. So yeah, definitely a good one to take a shot on. They develop pitchers good down there in Atlanta, as we well know, as Met fans.
Yeah, yeah. I know they always seem to find these guys, and then you have other teams that just go through prospects and free agent guys, and none of them work out. So cool. All right. Well, I think that's a pretty full episode. Yeah. I mean, I could go on for another 2 hours. I got a whole bunch of guys. So
Did you ban Juan Soto talk? Did I miss that? Did we ban any kind of talk about Juan Soto?
We didn't go there.
I know. Somehow it never got brought up. When I heard
Oh, did you? Yeah, he came out the other day and said like, it wasn't about the money, this and that. You liar! You're lying. That's all you cared about. He would have went to Australia if they paid him the most money. That guy. I hope he's there for
knowing up on anybody that's talking to in the media. It's only 80% of the truth, maximum. You get very rare to have your fully honest guys, you know?
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
I'd rather you just not say anything.
Well, Myles Garrett wanted to go to a winner, and that's all he cared about. He just want to play for a winner. Well, here's $40 million a year. I'll stay for Cleveland for another couple of years, I guess. It happens all the time. They all want money. It's all talk to get more money. Don't hate on Soto.
DK put out like 4
Freeman
things.
Took the Dodgers deal. The Dodgers deal for Freeman was he could have took the hometown discount to stay in Atlanta, and he went.
Yeah, but wasn't there was something about his agent borderline like lied to him or something? Remember?
Right, I do remember that. Like he said he wanted to stay in
there
Atlanta.
There was some story where he basically was like, I want them to have the chance to match, and like he just never even did it or whatever. I love Freddie. I love the story behind him. I love his upbringing. I think if Atlanta, and again, you got to be in the ballpark when it comes to this. I don't think he wanted to leave Atlanta.
No,
Yeah, you're right. I totally forgot about that. You're right.
Don't agree with Joe. I mean, he just hates Juan Soto, and he's trying to bring up everything.
Listen, he's a Met. Let's go.
All right,
we should have a mid-season report and see how everybody's doing.
Yeah, let's do it.
For sure. I love it. So, Mike, thanks for coming on. First ever guest. First time we've had a third member in here. I think it went pretty smooth. Seems to work good. So we will continue doing that. And I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you again, man. Appreciate it. Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for moving up the show so I can sneak in there.
Yeah, sounds great. Let's maybe we might have to get a golf outing where we can talk baseball.
I can figure that out.
Golf. Oh, beautiful. All right. Sounds good. If you don't subscribe to this, please subscribe. We are on all the major platforms. I always forget one. YouTube, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So thank you, and may your fantasy season go well.
Good luck. Win some money.
That's right. Win some cash.